turned up my brightness a little bit. I was looking a little orange. Now I look pale, but I have a really good suntan because I've been walking a lot of miles. And the office has gotten really quiet because we finally got rid of the servers that we've been using for decades, really. Because you could say in a really profound way, AI put my machine learning out of business, even though I always beat them. But, free is free, and it's never free. Anyway, that aside, we're going to talk about AI today. We're going to talk about faith. We're going to talk about integrity a little bit. And so I want to start off with a story you probably missed about a Missouri pizzeria that's being impacted in a way that you wouldn't expect from Google. And so let's get started. Here we go. Let's try and cue this up.
That's why they've been concerned with a series of calls and comments from customers looking for deals.
And we're like, what are you talking about?
That Google's AI overview serves up for their restaurant.
You buy a small pizza, you get the second pizza for $4. We've never offered that special.
Offers that simply don't exist.
It also tells you that we offer a large for the price of a small pizza. That's not true.
She says it's led to calls and confusion with customers.
It's coming back on us.
So much that they posted on Facebook asking patrons not to rely on AI.
We can't, as a small family business, honor a Google AI special.
Artificial intelligence is still evolving, and even
Yeah. So it can make up stories. It can lie about your own offers. In fact, just for fun, I decided to use AI's version, Google's AI version, to find out about myself. And in general, it was pretty accurate. But that's an interesting side effect, is that Google AI is actually creating offers for her pizzeria that don't exist. And probably people asked, are there any specials for pizza in my area or something like that? And so AI knew they were looking for specials, and if there weren't any nearby, it's a small town, Google just offered a few. Wow, never expected that. So here's another article video that I thought was interesting.
Scientific fraud is on the rise.
When should we trust the science? What about when science tells us science is full of fraud and deception?
Those who cut corners or those who are sloppy, let alone those who are fraudulent, can publish more.
A new study published in Proceedings of National Academy of Sciences did a large-scale data analysis of scientific literature with case studies.
And what they uncovered in this big study, assuming their study isn't full of fraud, I guess, is that there is a sophisticated network spanning the entire globe of scientific fraud.
Big money uses money to influence and persuade scientists to write data that was not actually found in experiments.
Often when we think about fraud, we're thinking about lone actors, people who are doing bad science kind of on their own. Maybe they're cheating the system a little bit, making up some figures. But what they found in this big study was actually it's more like there's organized crime within the scientific world. Millions of dollars exchanging hands, going back and forth in order for people to advance their careers in illegitimate ways.
And this is such a big problem because the fraudulent science is growing faster than legitimate science.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it really is undermining legitimate science and its practice. And with AI on the horizon and kind of exploding onto the scene, the problem could get worse and worse and worse.
The authors of this paper are saying, hey, if we can't even control fraud pre-AI, what on earth are we going to do now that AI is out there and it can create, fake papers in just a few seconds? Because how this large-scale fraud works is they have these paper mills that are just cranking out huge numbers of papers. And then they sell them to academics who can then publish them without actually having done any work. The paper mills will make up the data. They'll use plagiarized content they've stolen from other people.
Bad students would love this.
Right? They'll use manipulated, stolen, or even AI-generated images. And then oftentimes what happens is the paper ends up with some kind of weird nonsensical claim because AI or whoever is writing the paper doesn't really know what they're talking about, so it doesn't really make sense.
Right.
And there were two examples as we were doing some research for this episode that I thought were really funny to illustrate this. One was clearly whatever paper mill was making these papers had a template. And you would just put data, copy paste into this template. And they forgot to make a couple of little changes to this. So it was a study on prostate cancer, and half of the patients listed in this study were female, which...
And it was the paper titled "The Improbability of Prostate Cancer in Females," which of course they don't have a prostate, so it's pretty unlikely that they'll get it. Oh my goodness! But anyway, so is that prevalent in marketing? I was having a conversation with Paul at Postpilot. And he said, it sounds like you think that, a lot of the marketing community is like off track. Is that possible? I said, yes. Actually, my experience is that there are few or no statisticians who understand marketing, and few marketers who really understand the real side of statistics. And so I ran across another interview where Jordan Peterson was talking about statisticians and how important morality is in statistics, which you won't hear every day. So let's try that one. Boom.
Yep. Okay, so then on the statistical analysis front, so people who know anything about statistics think that you take a spreadsheet of numbers and dump it into a meat grinder and crank the handle and out comes truth. And that is 100% false, because when you're doing statistical analysis, it's a form of critical thinking and exploration, and you're making ethical decisions at every choice point. So you have to figure out which data points constitute outliers, because maybe there was a measurement error, for example, while you were sampling that particular behavior, and
or spurious correlations that are just totally meaningless.
You have to tilt the statistical investigation to some degree against the outcome that you're hoping for, to make sure that you don't fool yourself. And it's saturated with ethical decisions. And then that all has to be nested within the presumption, first of all, the presumption that you should not ever publish false data just to move your career forward. And you might say, well, why the hell not? And also that you are required on ethical grounds to let go of your tyrannical presuppositions if the data reveals that what you're clinging to for your own psychological reasons is wrong. And all of that's an attitude of ethical conduct, and not a set of explicit statable propositions. And
yeah, that's hugely important. Richard Feynman, the physicist, the Nobel Prize winner, used to say you must bend backwards to criticize yourself, because you are the easiest person to fool.
Wonderful, wonderful interview. Wonderful, with John Lennox, and who's a mathematician. And, I've been trying to explain to the marketing industry that the danger is in fooling yourself, that we are very, very capable of that. And I look at my experience in 40 plus years as a marketing consultant, and target marketing, one-to-one marketing, data-driven marketing, database marketing, big data, machine learning, AI, and it's one buzzword after another that makes it sound like we just, it's just purely empirical, that we follow the science in marketing, and nothing could be further from the truth. And in fact, too often, our marketing buzzwords are driven by the margin that we can bill based on the novelty of our promised procedures. When I got started in building big databases, people would ask me, well, what's this database marketing? I said, it's selling a box, a magical box, to gullible merchants. And there's a lot of truth to that. And so I'm going to just cut this short and and send you over to an article that I have posted on LinkedIn called Integrity as a Modeling Variable. This is a funny cartoon by Tom Fishburne. Our agency said that if we want our brand to appeal to millennials, our message has to be authentic. And it says it's poop, you know. And it does sort of strike me funny when I look at all the furor around Cracker Barrel because it's almost like they've poopified their logo and their advertising, as far as I can tell, in order to appeal. Look at their billboards. If you want to see something really awful, the logo is less readable now than it was before they cleaned it up, and less recognizable on the billboard. Look at the billboards, because it really reveals how a designer can be right up close to the screen. In order to evaluate a billboard, you got to leave it up on your screen and walk to the back wall and see if you can make any sense of it. And they have plates of food that look totally like mush. They don't look like food. Look at the way Waffle House portrays a waffle. It's highly stylized. That's what you need to do on a billboard. And so these people, and yet the CEO is defending all of this as, sales were going up. Yeah, well, Mark Ritson might say it's salience. You're causing a furor in a negative direction, which may actually raise sales while undermining a 50-year-old brand image. Anyway, I'm not going to say whether it was a good idea or a bad idea. I'm not a big Cracker Barrel user, but I do have some fond memories, except for that little golf tee game they put on every table, and I never can solve that. But I want to send you over to this Integrity as a Modeling Variable. I'll put links for all this stuff, and I want you to think about how often, as marketers, we fool ourselves and try to fool our clients and our customers. That's what you want to think about. I was really impressed when I did some consulting work for McCann-Erickson, and their motto, which was up there on the front desk when you came into the lobby, was, and still is as far as I know, the truth well told. That's something to think about. Think about bending over backwards to make sure you're not fooling yourself. Have a heavy dose of humility when you're testing your own ideas. I welcome your comments. I welcome your thoughts. Have a great day. Like and share.